Hi, good morning, and welcome to Raan Oosha's talks on the spiritual journey. This morning I have Nevi from all the way in Melbourne, Australia. The wonders of the internet, eh?
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk about Nevi's spiritual journey, where she is. This will be a two-part. So the first part will be just with Nevi, and part two will be with her partner Belle and the retreat she runs with her. So thank you very much for joining. Good morning, Grand Rising Nevi.
Hello, good evening. It's 7 o'clock in Melbourne. So
I see. Okay. So how are you today?
Very well in the lead up to Christmas. Very good, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining this morning. And today I just wanted to get into your spiritual journey, but I thought I would start with what you're doing now, and then we leave that there. And if you can just explain what it is that you do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, actually, I have two lives in a way. So my day job is in marketing. I'm a marketing communications consultant. I've just gone out on my own this year after losing my job during COVID. So it's been a real awakening. It's been great. And then the other side of my life is running retreats and workshops around self-healing and meditation and manifesting in that realm. So yeah, I've a very busy life, but all created, which is awesome. So yeah, two very yin and yang situations in my life.
Fantastic. Okay, can you let me know where and how your spiritual journey started?
Yeah, look, I would say the earliest memory was when I was a teenager, and my sister lent me this book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And I didn't know anything about Buddhism at the time, but I distinctly remember this book, and it was really profound. I don't think I understood much of it being young, but it was phenomenal. And that kind of was the catalyst for opening up so many other things to me as a young adult. But I'd have to say the biggest spiritual journey, that like the biggest of my life, was actually when my father passed away, which was 11 years ago this November. So that in itself was almost an awakening of some sort, but it really cut into whatever journey I was on and took it in a whole new direction. So yeah, I mean, the passing of somebody close to you is a pretty big impact in someone's life. And I think when you have a spiritual aspect to it, you're able to delve into it a lot better and a lot, with a lot more rigor than just having that someone's passed away. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big thing.
Okay, so what age were you when you got that book?
I was a teenager. I don't know what age. I was either in my late teens or maximum early 20s. So around 20 years ago.
And what happened from there? You read the book and did you start investigating Buddhism or anything else?
Yeah. At the time, I mean, look, this was the 90s, I'd say at that point. So there wasn't a lot to do, but I think it was more that I started to learn that there was something else other than religion in the world. We're not a really religious family, but Buddhism became my religion. So I looked more into that, and the whole idea of impermanence, that there's an afterlife, all those things were so interesting. And then, going to uni, you start to talk to people, like, what do they think? And that opened up a whole new world, really, which I think is then when my father did pass away. There was so much that I knew for myself as a personal thing about this life and this world that we live in and what happens. And that all was from that book, which I don't know that I ever even finished, but I think just the thought of life and what can happen and how precious it is really what just had me become super inquisitive about, well, what else? Like, what else happens? What else? And what's the point of being here? So, at uni, I became one of those people, what is the point of being here? Like, starting to look into all that stuff, as you do at uni, getting all lofty about life.
So what is it about death, and what is this impermanence that you discovered or found?
I guess it's that thing about non-attachment, and impermanence being, if you can, I guess, live and breathe, not just as a concept, but the idea that life comes and goes, and that there's just an ebb and a flow to everything. And I do recall this one part of the book talking about and I may not say this right, but there was something about a turtle bobbing in the ocean, and the likelihood of you being reborn as a human was the likelihood of that turtle literally putting its head up through like a circle somewhere bobbing around in the ocean. So that idea of how precious human life is, like a soul on this earth, is what really struck me. And that's the only thing I remember from that entire book. So it's just that, I think I've forgotten the question. What was the question? Sorry.
Death. And what is it about death?
Yes. And I think the whole thing about having a spiritual perspective on death is that the physicality is gone when somebody passes, whether it's the death of a relationship, a friendship, whatever, but when it's death in the sense of someone passing over, it's the physicality that you miss, but then you realize that the soul and the energy and the spirit, they are around. And then, in some strange ways, I feel even closer to my dad in his passing, because we get to, is this like really out there, Brian? Do I need to pull back, or are we happy with it?
No, well, it's fine, yes.
Okay, cool. I get to see him in my dreams. So there's there's just a different world you can explore. So yeah, death and looking at it from a spiritual perspective doesn't ever, although was tough and by no means was it easy, there was just a solace and an understanding in a knowing that there's something else, that there is really, at the end of the day, in it, the energy I mentioned. We're all just energy.
So did you feel a deeper connection with your father because of this insight into of who you are, spirit and energy?
Sorry, ask me that question again. It kind of
connection with your father from, even though he had passed, was there something new that you gained from that?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, gain from it in what way exactly? Sorry, just give me a bit more clarity on that question.
So your father passed and you learnt about, the impermanence and how you found some solace. Did you find a kind of connection with your father, even though he had passed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's so hard to put into words, but I think it's that when you see somebody because I dream so vividly, when you see somebody in your dreams, it's like that they're there. And look, by no means am I painting a rosy picture of when you've lost somebody important in your life, because it was still very, very hard. And I had to commit to moving myself through it. But that connection, it's hard to describe it. You'd have conversations, like you're having conversations with them, but it's almost like they're there helping you through certain times of life, like they would have if they were physically here. But sometimes there was no talking. It was all just, a feeling. So it's like we connected on an intellectual level, whereas, I mean, Dad was Dad, like we were good friends when he passed away, but, he's a Serbian dad and I'm like this, modern Australian girl. Like it's just, we were chalk and cheese in so many ways, but in his passing and in that realm, so for the last 11 years, it's like we've developed a new relationship almost. Yeah.
So you said that your father was a Serbian. Where was your mother from?
Yeah, they're both Serbian. So they were not born here. They were born overseas, but I was born in Melbourne.
So what was it like for you growing up with Serbian parents in Australia?
It was really hard. I didn't want to be Serbian. I wanted to be Australian. So my full name is actually Nevenka, and I pretty much, I think, in grade prep, so that's our very first year of school here, I said that I wanted to be called Nevi because I didn't want to be very different. Although when I was growing up, it was much easier for me. My sister was the generation that it was really hard, like the immigrants to Australia. And I mean, Melbourne's full of immigrants, like the whole city's built up on the Greeks and the Italians. And, it's an amazing multicultural community, but we were still different. Now, I had great friends, so I didn't really feel it, but I never wanted to be, when I grew up, when I got really old, like when I was 14 or something, or 15, I just wanted to be not Serbian. And then when I got into my 20s, I was like, wow, I've been really missing out. So I kind of came back into how proud I am of being different. Yeah.
Did your investigation into spirituality help you in that sense?
As in being Serbian?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. Like, I wasn't a very good Serbian. I know that's a very funny thing to say, but we're not, I'm not very traditional, but I think, yeah, I think I'm just the strangest case study of what it is to be Serbian, but not. So it's, yeah, it's a funny thing, but when you grow up in an Australian community, you either really are one thing or you really are another. So I don't know, but I just think having heritage, that, you know, that inquisitiveness about where we come from. And I honestly know barely anything about my parents' past. They just don't talk about it. It's just one of those things. So I think it was that, because we're not very strict religious in the sense of religion, I had the capacity and the freedom to explore what I wanted to. So, you know, we weren't heavily orthodox, even though mum and dad go to church and mum still does. We're not, is the word dogmatic? Like, we're not, it's not like, you know, there's certain rules to follow and that kind of thing. So I guess being spiritual became like the way I would deal with the world, and I could just do it however I wanted it to look. Like, I didn't have to look a certain way.
Mm. You spoke just a minute ago about dreams. How do dreams come into the spiritual way of life, or how have they helped you, or what have you discovered in your dreams?
That's a good question. I think dreams are a wonderful playground to deal with what you're sometimes stuck on in life. So, you know, before I go to bed, I'll speak to my guides or my higher self or spirit or whoever it is. And if there's a problem I can't quite solve, I tend to request some answers to come through in my dreams. Or even if I am battling with something and I can't resolve it here on the physical plane, in the dreams, it's like I get to play something out, and it could be an emotion or it could be a conversation I need to have. So I think, yeah, it's such a fascinating world that I'm not sure I can quantify in words, but, you know, having studied philosophy at university and thinking about Carl Jung and all those guys that were just so heavily into looking into meanings of dreams and what they meant, it's just hard to ignore that there's something quite profound that happens at nighttime, and that wherever it is that we go, I don't know where that is, but I guess that's why being spiritual, I can almost use dreams as a vehicle, and it's not just like I'm going to sleep to regenerate. So yeah, there's a lot about dreams that I don't think we give just, you know, justice to, in how it allows us to grow. And of course, in dreams, you can be sad as well. And there's things that you can do that sometimes you can't communicate when you're awake. Yeah.
So you mentioned, so what are spiritual guides?
They are well, in my own words, that's a tough question to kind of put into words, isn't it? A tough answer, sorry. Guides are, I guess, the angels or those in the spiritual realm that are not in physical form, that have been chosen, or, you know, I chose at some point as a soul coming into this world to guide me through this life. And it depends on who you subscribe to and what understanding. They could have either been completely chosen by me or already there waiting for me because they've been through certain things in life. But it's like when we talk about, you know, the soul and the spirit and the higher self, it's that other energy form that, you know, you can rely on for, or speak to and or connect with about anything and everything. I guess it's so hard to put that into words, isn't it? And I wish I had a textbook answer for you, but I don't. But I guess it's that knowing that either I used to, or it might seem totally kooky to some other people about having spirit guides out there. Like, I've had a mental blank, but I'm just trying to think of things like archangels, if that makes more sense to people, or those from the angelic realm. And some have names, you know, there's people might know certain angels by their names. It's just in that realm, that other world, the one that I know that we go to when we pass over.
Yeah, thank you. Because I think it's really important that we kind of use our own words, because we all see it and we describe it in different ways. A lot of times I think that maybe we get stuck into how we've read it should be said.
Yeah.
Thing I think is when it comes from you and it's your own words, and you may use different terms to describe it, but for you it's that personal, yeah, it's a personal thing for you, which nobody's words, nobody else's words would ever be enough. It's going to be your,
Yeah.
how you see it, how you describe it.
Well, you would laugh, but mine is sitting around a boardroom table, which is not really that far. I mean, if you knew, like when you really know me, that makes a lot of sense. But my guides are always sitting around a table, so I can kind of tap into them and, ask questions and things. But yeah, I guess, look, for some people, it could be that invisible friend they had as a child. That could potentially be their higher self. They've just always been told there's no such thing as invisible friends, but there probably are lots of them.
Yeah, I mean, so again, so I guess that when we're children, we're more open to these things. And as we grow up, we learn about the materiality of life, good and bad, left and right, what is wrong. And maybe
Mm.
we subdue all these, what we see, all our thoughts and feelings just to fit in. Did you come across that growing up?
Oh, did I? Probably because, Brian, I'm an Aquarian and I'm as bad as out there as you can get when it comes to thinking about things in a not conventional way. But I don't know that my parents ever did that. That was society more than anything. Fortunately for me, I've grown up with wonderful friends who I still have in my life now. So, 40 odd years later. So I think if anything, it came from society not understanding spirituality back then as much, unless of course you were in that kind of that you were a hippie. I don't like to use that word, but there was very much a kind of person that you were, and that's accepted. But what I always fumble over still to this day is that you can totally be someone who's worked in the corporate world most of your life but still have a spiritual side to you, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But we like to compartmentalize people. You're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. Plus, you probably know that in Australia, we've got this tall poppy syndrome thing that's like real. Don't get too high. We've got a lot of weird things that we talk about. And I think being spiritual is kind of shut down if you're not genuinely like living in the bush somewhere up in a tree.
See. So is that one of your ways forward in bridging this, what is tell us is different, the corporate world, business world, and the spiritual world? So how
Absolutely.
are you bridging this together? Not going too much into what we're going to talk about in a couple
Yeah.
of weeks. But,
Well, actually, I think the universe has pushed me in this way. So there's another spiritual thing I talk about. Some people might talk about God, but for me, it's universe or spirit has shown me that there are so many people who I've worked with my entire life that even look at meditation as something that is out there, that it's not actually part of them or in their birthright or their understanding. So in the work that I do with Belle, we're really looking at how to make this accessible so that it's not like an untouchable thing that only those of us who might have been taught meditation understand, or that, do Reiki or whatever it is. So yeah, I really think that there's a place for everyone to take care of themselves, their wellness, their self-care, that doesn't necessarily look like just exercising or, I mean, definitely not about taking medicine or like popping a pill to feel good. But everyone's got a sense of spirituality. I think it's the terminology that we use is what stops people, especially when they're not used to it. I've loads of friends who have just started their spiritual journey and they're in their mid 50s, like early 50s, corporate workers, don't quite know what it means. Like, what is it to be spiritual? But it's just that inquisitiveness. I think that everybody has it. They just have never been exposed to it properly. But it's, look, after what this year has delivered, everyone is so much more open to, like, what other way is there to live? Like, what else can we do?
yeah, thank you. I mean, so can we get into, I've called this Raan Oosha's conversation on the spiritual journey, but I like what you just said. What is the spiritual journey? Because even that term has so many things connected with it. What is it for you?
Good question. What is the spiritual journey? I think just in the moment, if I tap in, the way I would describe that, the spiritual journey is discovering in life how to expand as a soul. So like, having soul awareness and not just about the doing and the working and the showing up and making money, but in a presence and awareness of a being, like who you're being in the world, what you put out there, wanting to make a difference. And I think that spiritual journey fundamentally is connecting us to source energy, to the spirit, to universe, but it means we have to come up out of ourselves. So it's not just about being, two-dimensional or like human to human, physical to physical. The spiritual journey is really about coming back home in a way, like back to ourselves. I think we give so much to others. We're always thinking about what's next. Depends on if you're ambitious or not. If you've got a family, everything's always over there. But I think a spiritual journey very much is about coming back in here into the heart. And even that might sound really crazy, but it just makes so much sense to me that we're disconnected from ourselves more than anything. So for me, a spiritual journey is really about discovering who you are, like genuinely who you are.
Could you go into that point about being disconnected from ourselves? What exactly is that?
Well, I think we don't really know, unless it's some kind of external source that makes us happy, what makes us happy. I think we think a car makes us happy, or money. Of course they make us, cars make me happy and money makes me happy, but it's not my source of happiness. I think that's where we go off. Like there's always an external factor that if we have that, then we're happy. But for me, for most of us, that's not how life works. It's just that we don't know how to snap out of it. It makes sense. Like the more money you earn, the happier you are, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You've got all this freedom. But when your mind and your heart are disconnected, and it's like you're trapped, I feel like there's just a trap because you're constantly chasing the next thing. And there's difference between that conscious awareness of something and just walking around life in some unconscious state. And like a lot of people are, they just don't know it. But, I also don't want to come across like there's anything wrong if you're not on a spiritual journey. It's just that there's so much juice. There's so much juice to give being on one, because the more you open up as a soul, the more you tend to be able to give. And honestly, giving or, like supporting other people and watching them flourish, even if it's just, friend to friend, so rewarding. It really is. So yeah, it's kind of a big discussion, really, isn't it?
So what's happened with you in regards to you waking up as a soul? How has that manifested in your life?
Oh my God, it manifests all the time, Brian. Like it's never ending. I think I sometimes ask for the development to happen, but because I'm constantly curiously engaged with life, it will happen. And then I will need to deal with it with the tools that I have. So for example, this year we had COVID, and in Melbourne, we were locked down for, I think, 3 extra months, pretty much not going more than 5 kilometers from your house, only to the supermarket and back. If you lived on your own, you had to stay on your own. We've gone through a really traumatic time, and there's just something that has been, that in itself was a catalyst, right? So nobody asked for that, but we got it. Oh, did we? We probably did ask for it. So that's another thing. You can either act like life is happening to you, or you can really get that you're the creator of it, everything that's happening in your life. And I think in that space, everything's a spiritual journey. People you meet and relationships you have, and developing relationships, and all of it is connected, because you get as somebody on a spiritual journey, you're not on your own. We're all one. And if I'm sorry if my connection's gone unstable, let me know if I drop out or you can't hear me. If I'm doing something that isn't, beneficial to somebody else, or speaking out of turn, I know that it's not just affecting me, but it's rippling out everywhere. And I'm not perfect. I don't sit here pretending I'm like some, like I have to live in the first world. It's tough. It's tough out here. but I'm very consciously aware of, of who I am and, who I'm being in the world and the impact I have on others. And sometimes I mess up and I've got to clean it up, but yeah.
So have you found, doing this introspection, did you found things within yourselves, maybe pains or traumas that you've been through? Have you really been able to see them? Has that happened to you?
Tell me more about that. So I don't think I'm quite understanding the question. I apologize.
No, so you said sometimes it's not always easy, difficult things you go through, but being in, maybe, as you said, presence, you allow things to come up that maybe you bottled or you kept down. Has that happened to you?
A million times, yes. Yeah, a million times. But like every month in a way, I think a few times a year, big things will happen. But yeah, like always. And you don't know that you're bottling them up until they erupt or the lesson isn't being learned. And we talk about the bells and allergies, the little pebble and then the brick. The brick gets thrown and you're like, oh, I've been missing those signs. I've been too wrapped up, in something else. Happens with love, it happens with career, it happens with so many important things in life. And then it's, I guess, when they happen. And I got to backtrack on something. I also don't think you have to suffer to be spiritually aware or to evolve. We don't have to be like, oh, I had a death of somebody and now I'm spirit. No, bullshit. Like, it's the spiritual evolving happens day to day, person to person. I think it's just being inquisitive about what's happening out there and remembering we're not alone, that there's always someone there, as in spiritually or physically. There's all those things, so that when you do have a situation come up, like, I think relationships are probably the best example of that, and love, like the kind of love you have for, yes, a parent and a friend, but when you're in a relationship with somebody and that heartbreak is just palpable, when things don't go well. I think that's probably been one of my hardest lessons in life, and probably one of the big reasons that I've had to transform in this lifetime. Such a big thing. So yeah, there's a lot that happens.
So have you seen people connecting this, you have to suffer, with spirituality?
Yeah, happens all the time. I think people wear it like a badge of honor. Oh, I suffered. No. Look, I've been guilty of manifesting events in my life, unconsciously, so through the subconscious, not through the conscious mind, to then go and have to do what I've really wanted to do. Perfect example that I mentioned before was losing my job during COVID, that I've been in for almost 10 years. I've wanted to go out on my own for 3 years and run my own business. I stayed in that job for safety and security. You could say that because I didn't get my skates on and sort that out for myself, and I am pretty sure this is how it happened. It's like I've manifested that into my life. But let me tell you, losing a job in the middle of COVID wasn't fun. There was a lot of shit that came up: fear, doubt, concern, where would my money come from, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to get to another point in my life where I have to deal with something like that because I haven't listened to myself or my soul that's been like, get out, do it now. So that was a really big lesson this year. Safety, security over taking a calculated risk and just jumping over the edge. Never do that again. But, there's another big lesson that I had to learn. I've learned it before once, like in the same realm in my career about 12 years ago. It happened again. It's like, okay, I get it. I'm not going to do that anymore. I understand.
Is it, yeah, you hear the phrase sometimes, the same lesson will be kept on repeating until you learn it.
It's like, what do you mean? I thought we sorted this out. No, we didn't. Because that's the other thing. It's the onion layers get peeled and peeled and peeled. It's not, there's one lesson. And that's a good thing to know, because it's not like, oh, but I've already learned this, don't make me go through it again. It's not about that. It's this ability to be agile and flexible and deal with the what's so about it. Okay, this is what happened, lost my job, and this is, what I'm going to do about it. And, there's lots of things that you could do. You could shut it down and run away. But having that kind of spiritual angle to it, I really looked into like, well, why did that happen right then, right in the middle? And what did I have to learn about myself? Like, what wasn't I doing that was true to myself in the last 3 years of being in that role? Like, what was I, making up just to get by? Oh, it's okay. I love who I work with. And this might be what might seem like a simple example, but it's not. It's relationships, it's jobs, it's doing those things that we're not really aligned with, but we just tell stories to ourselves to get by. And then you get the brick. And I got the brick. It was the best brick I've ever had. It was amazing.
What is this fear that stops us sometimes moving on to the next job or the next relationship? What is that sometimes holds us back and keeps us in positions that we don't want to be in for days, months, years sometimes?
Personally speaking, I think it's safety and familiarity. I would because it's about money too, and it's about identity. Well, for me anyway, because my career is so important to me. Like, I've spent most of my adult life building it, and you get wrapped up in a bit of ego. And even if you don't think you're being egotistical about it, fear is very much ego. It's the unknown. And yet, if you look at something else that you might do, like just say you're really, you're not a dancer or something, dancing scares you, but someone pulls you onto a dance floor and you just go for it, like you go nuts. That's the same thing. But for some reason, when it comes to big things, relationships and career, for example, we're just so afraid that we won't survive or something. Like fundamentally, do you think that you're going to die if you change tack? Like, if you really delve deep, you'll probably find that most people will say they think that they'll die, which makes no sense, I know, but like, it's that palpable for us because we need security. Like, we live in a world where, it's quite expensive to live in Melbourne. Like, I can't, I've got to think about material things before I can go and follow my soul. Like, what? It just seems ridiculous, but it's what happens.
Yeah, I think sometimes this money issue of needing to live, to pay your rent, and so often we've been taught it's different. Money's here, spirituality is here. How can we bring this together? And just a second point, what do we have to unpack about seeing money as being wrong in a sense?
Oh, I love this topic because I love money so much. And I think this is the thing that we do, like, money's bad and wrong, but money's just an energy exchange at the end of the day. And money's about value. And I'm huge on gratitude. So money comes in to my life mainly because Belle and I have been obsessed with this book called The Magic by the lady Rhonda Byrne that did The Secret. I wasn't that much of a fan of The Secret because I felt like it had just been, completely, put through the ringer, especially here in Australia. It was a super popular book. But in The Magic, it's all about gratitude. And money at the end of the day is really what makes the world go around. We get it, but it's not dirty and it's not bad. And I think unless you've got a healthy relationship to money, that that you might need it to pay for food and accommodation and all those things, you can look at it in a logical way, but you can actually definitely look at it like, the more money you have, the more you can give. Like, I want to be so rich one day, Brian, that I can just buy buildings and have people come and, run businesses out of them, or help, with anybody that might need, like, have a cafe in there. We have that happens in Melbourne a lot. People who are really wealthy will just buy a property and allow business to thrive in there and charge them like $1 a year in rent. Now, I want to be that kind of wealthy, but for good reasons. Like, I'm not going to go out and, start ripping people off on the stock market or something. But I think we have this like money's bad because being rich is bad. But the more money you have, really, the more you can take care of the people around you as well. That's how I look at it. Very much a personal opinion. That could be very controversial. I don't know. But I definitely think we've been taught that there's a black and a white with money, and that you're either rich or poor, and what happens if you're poor and what happens if you're rich. You know, there's bad in both circles. Not good to be poor, it's not good to be rich, blah, 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 blah. Never ending.
So where does this come from? Because we're not born this way, are we? We're not thinking about money as being bad or why, and we're taught to grow up, we have to work for somebody else, you know. But where does all this come from?
I mean, like if we look at it, like think about the influences we have. Our parents, number one, my parents were taught in some old school ways, like work to the bone for your money, work super hard. I mean, as tried as this might sound, from movies, like we're heavily influenced by what we see on the television or in movies. And there's a lot of inequality that we see in those movies that people don't differentiate from reality compared to like in the movie. And then just through history that there's, I mean, if you kind of look at it from an anthropological sense, because I studied anthropology in uni. Oh, it's the third thing I've brought up about uni, must be a reason. You know, the third world supporting the first world. So we have a terrible view that money is only for those in the first world, and that, you know, there's just this, I'm struggling to find my words about it. There's just a stigma. There's a stigma around things, and that only comes from society and these bizarre thoughts that we have about right and wrong. I mean, where does that come from? I don't know. Like history teaching us that the rich are the rich, the poor are the poor. Everyone loves an underdog story, you know. Everyone loves to hear when someone poor has become rich. Like we thrive on it. It's journalism. Like it's in everything we do. It's always about money.
So what do you feel about in regards to, so in the charging for, you know, retreats, or what's the relationship with money? Because sometimes that can get very sticky. If some people who would actually benefit from doing a retreat can't afford to do the retreat.
Yeah.
Benefit from having a one-to-one session, but cannot afford that one-to-one session.
Yeah.
How do you work a way around that?
Yeah, look, this is a very deep question, but I think it's always a personal thing. A, you've got to know your value. B, I know that, just for example, Belle and I, we always like to gift something, or we always like to, you know, provide extra value where possible. And at the moment we're in that middle range, whereas one day we'd like to offer every tier, for example. But what always makes us feel good is gifting like an entire, like, let's say, Reiki weekend to somebody that we know would really benefit and love it. So there's always kind of a bit of a yin and a yang with it. So we're not just about making money, even though we know it's important, because a business can't develop without it. But we always look for ways we could always give back in some way, shape or form. And I think universally speaking, it's a great way for us, and we feel really good about it. So that's how we work that out. A, we value ourselves. We check in with ourselves. Does that feel good? You know, does that not feel good? And look, we've had to learn the hard way. We're not charging a lot of money for some things, whereas someone down the road charging 3 times as much. And that, you know, that doesn't feel good to us. It's not about not valuing ourselves. It just doesn't feel good.
Isn't that something that's really important? Look into the valuing of ourselves, whether it be in business or even in your personal life. Could you go into, what's this term, valuing ourselves?
This is one of my favorite sayings, that I'm a funny creature. I really like pop culture, and there's a Sex and the City has a movie where Samantha Jones says to her partner, "I love you, but I love me more." And that line there is everything to me, because it's having this person love itself more than anyone else. Because if you don't love yourself fundamentally, you've got nothing to give anybody. So valuing yourself is knowing boundaries, knowing that you're, you know, wonderful in whatever way, what you can contribute to other people, just being really self-aware. And I think valuing yourself has to come down to self-love, which is what I meant by that line. You don't love yourself, you've really got nowhere to go.
So is this self-love then, if there is just one of us, it actually is a whole love? if there is self-love and it's more universal. So maybe it's to explain that as well in a way that people can understand that this self is more than just this person, and it spreads out to whoever you touch and you meet.
Absolutely. Well, we think about vibration and quantum physics and energy. When you're loving yourself, that vibration you're putting out into the universe is palpable, and there's a very different person you attract into your energy field as well. You know, acquaintances, people in the street, conversations, and it's that idea of being whole and complete for yourself, however you are, because none of us think that we're perfect. I mean, good on you if you do. It's amazing. As long as that's like from a fundamentally wholesome point of view. Some of us think we're fantastic because our egos are humongous, but there's a difference, right? But self-love is self-respect, and it's honoring who you are, and then being able to, when you need to, push back on certain things, being able to say no. All of that is about self-love and self-respect, because we're always thinking and worrying about what maybe people think of us, or worrying about the people around us. We forget that we're the most important people in our own lives, and then everybody else has to come second and third. And that's not to say you won't love them as much or give to them. Like, I would do anything for my mum, who's in the other room right now waiting for me so we can hang out and have dinner. But I know that if I don't fill my cup up first and have self-respect and boundaries and be very clear about what I can and can't do, then those relationships, they're not fulfilling for me. So I think for all of us, self-love is just such a big, important journey to be on, which is really the spiritual journey as well. Because, what does Nevi like? What do I like to do? What makes me happy? What can I do to be a better person at the end of the day? Yeah.
There's a wonderful term you've used, and you hear it in many fields. It's filling your own cup up. Can you please just go into that just a little bit more?
Yeah, it's a bit of
own cup.
Filling the cup. What the hell does that mean? Filling the cup is what I also call a self-care plan. So filling the cup is any activity that I like to do that makes me feel relaxed, happy, myself, especially when you're depleted of energy. You might be working heat a lot. Christmas is coming up. If I don't stop and tune in and take care of myself, that could, for me, look like sitting in quiet, reading a book. It could be meditating. It could be doing yoga. It could be going shopping on my own. It could be spending time with my best friend in the world with no phones on, out at a cafe. It doesn't matter what it is, but for me, those activities fill my cup. And I'm very clear, if 2 to 3 things from that list aren't done, at least on a weekly basis, I become irritated, I become not as nice, I become a little snippy, which we all do. There's nothing wrong with that. But you take that and don't do anything for a month, and you've got starting to chip away at a shell of a human, because this is where we start to run on adrenaline and cortisol and stress, and we think it's normal. But I know, I'm very much of the belief that if you don't keep filling your cup with things that you love to do and activities that make your soul happy, you're just constantly etching away your own health, mental health, physical health, everything.
And you said, can you also go into the importance of sometimes saying no?
Ooh, yeah, my favorite. We just can't. And this isn't not like that. There's an amazing book I read about the year of yes, saying yes to everything. This woman that never said yes to anything. It's not about that. It's about stretching yourself too thin. It's about doing something might please someone else to the detriment of your own health and well-being. It's just being able to powerfully say, look, no, not right now, but I can do this for you another day. It's just about being really clear where your boundaries are, because I think we always want to please everybody else and make it. I mean, I do. I want to make everybody happy around me, but I also know my limits are larger than most people's. It takes a lot, but I am very happy to say no, because that won't serve me at the end of the day. So I guess I'm probably not the best test case for that, because I've got a huge threshold. Like, I can do so much before I need to say no, but I'm not afraid to say it because someone's not going to like me. You know, at the end of the day, I think when you're a leader, like, or you've been in leadership roles or you're a leader in life, being no is okay because I don't need to be liked. It's not about that. Of course, I want people to like me. I mean, I don't want people to think I'm a, you know, an asshole or something, but it's not about seeking to be liked. And that's why I think a lot of people can't say no. They don't want to upset people.
From what you said, it sounds very freeing that you can do something and you're not doing it because you need to be liked. You're doing it from who you are. And from that point, it seems very freeing then. Then you're allowed to just go on the path that you choose to. You hope to do your best. So could you go into that just a little bit more in the freedom it gives you when you can say no?
Yeah, you're right. It does give me freedom because I don't have to look, Brian, I've done a lot of work on myself because part of my spiritual journey has also been a lot of self-development. And in that, I got to see that being an authentic, just homegrown version of me, warts and all, but with love and compassion, not like, you know, being a dragon, throwing out fire and things. I think that is what it is. I think it's just knowing who you are and being okay with that. People accept the no a lot more as well. And look, sometimes saying no has not been easy, especially to somebody I know who's not going to react very well to my no, but I'm wonderful at taking care of that person and making sure that they get the no doesn't mean I don't love you. The no means I can't do this right now. It's not going to work. Hey, that hasn't gone so well sometimes in my life. I've had a friend not enjoy the no, and it really caused a huge ripple in our relationship. But I think you've got to be firm and strong, and it helps knowing who you are and knowing that, yeah, that it's just okay. Things are going to be okay if you say no. But you know, the thing is, even in a job, people never say no to things. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. And then the next thing you know, they are burnt out. Like, it's just total burnout. I just don't understand it. I think it's because I haven't been like that for such a long time. I kind of forgot what it was like to be a people pleaser, like when I would have been growing up. I'm sure that's how I used to be. But it's difficult when you've not been something for a long time. You almost, you forget why you would be like that. I think it's also because it's easy. Like, it's just easy to say yes. You don't want to deal with confrontation, you know. I like confrontation. I'm like, bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah, because there a learning that comes through. I mean, it's okay to, confrontation doesn't have to be arguments, and we can differ and still be happy.
Gold.
Yeah, but I think we're taught that different, sometimes you have to have an argument. It doesn't have to be that way.
No, and that's probably where society also goes wrong. Confrontation needs to be big blown explosion argument. Oh, I know I was definitely like that in my 20s with my partner at the time. Or silence. I used to have this thing where I'd go into silence mode. That was the best form of confrontation because nobody's got anywhere to move with me. But that's like a really disgusting way to be, you know, because if you're not communicating, how's the other person ever going to get who you are, what it is that you need? And so you can communicate no day. Yeah, it doesn't need to be that situation. It's not hard, just fearful of doing it. Once again, why? Why are we fearful? I don't know.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
We're just scared constantly.
I'm just going to see. Can you hear me?
Back now. How's that?
That's better. Yeah. Yes, I can hear you now.
Yep.
Could you just repeat that last bit?
Australia and the internet, we've had.
Could you explain that last bit again, what you just said?
Oh, sorry. Go. Sorry. Oh, no, it's cutting out on us again, isn't it? How about now?
Oh, yes. That's better. But even this, okay, so I think there's sometimes learning in all things. So even right now, the internet is cutting out a bit, but that's okay. That's part of what we're doing. So yeah, I mean, just to be okay with that. So where was the question I was going to ask you?
Oh, yeah, you said something about what we were just saying, but the internet threw me, so I can't remember what we were talking about.
Okay, so we'll talk about no, the power of no.
Yes, and why it's so powerful. Oh, is that internet playing up again? No. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, let's move on from there. So right now, could you just you talked about you're bridging the spirituality and business together, and where are you with that at the moment?
Well, I guess probably other than what Belle and I do, it's even with me, for example, choosing who I want to work with. So, like there's a difference in having a soulmate client, like somebody you really want to work with, or something that you'd really like to do. And there's that realm. And then other than that, it's just, we'd really like to develop, well, we've got some work in progress programs happening where we'd really like that whole idea of wellness, which is, I think, the PC term for spirituality in this day and age. Wellness can come into the corporate world and it just be completely normal. So some businesses have amazing wellness programs, usually outside of what they do. But honestly, for being 2020 and being in a very modern city, we don't have it like it's normal. Like, I think every business should come with a wellness program of some sort. Wouldn't that be fantastic? So that you weren't just getting a gym membership or a leasing of a car, but you had access to something that was actually really just good for you, good for your stress levels kind of thing. So yeah, we've got these ideas floating around. I would just love to see that, actually. That in my next, I'd say 10 years, I'd like that to come to fruition. That would be amazing.
Fantastic. So, well, I think it's a great place to leave it for today. When we come back in a couple of weeks, I hope, with you and Belle, we're really going to dive into what you and Belle are doing together, the retreats you put on, the outcomes of those. So I think it's just maybe the internet is giving us the it's telling us perfect timing. So I'd like to Nevi say thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to speak with you and to learn these things. And yeah, next time we'll really go into what you're doing now with you and Belle.
Great. Amazing. Thank you for your time. Namaste, as we say. And yeah, amazing. All the best for the show. Sounds great.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this is Raan Oosha Spiritual Journey with Nevi. We're gonna get back together and hopefully in a couple of weeks, a few weeks, with her and her partner Belle, and we're going to go into the retreats, what you're doing now and what you're doing for what's going to happen in the future. So Nevi, Grand Rising, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.
Okay, good. I just gave you time to cut the video. Just